tomorrow's Labor Day, which for many of you likely means parties, picnics, parades, hot dogs, watermelon, whatever it may be. It's also usually the start of the political season. But this year, it's safe to say it came a bit earlier. I mean, just take a look at what's happened in the past few months. An assassination attempt against the former president, a change at the top of the ticket on the Democratic side. It's been a lot. Now, we don't know everything that will happen over the next 2 months. We do know some things about the state of the presidential race right now. A new poll does show Harris taking the lead nationally, but far more important in my view is the one that shows Harris closing the gap with Trump in the Sun Belt battleground states. It's all going to be won in a handful of states. And a different poll shows Harris winning back young voters, with those aged 18 to 34 moving from supporting Trump by 11 points to supporting Harris by 13 points. Also among Latino voters, a group the Trump team has been focused on cultivating, spending money on it too. They have moved from supporting Trump by 2 points to supporting Harris by 16 points. And black voters now support Harris by 64 points, up from supporting Biden by 47 points. Basically, this is all good news, but what it means is Democratic and Democratic-leaning voters are coming home. That's a good sign for the Harris-Walz team. It's also important to remember the race remains close. And a lot's happening on the campaign trail, too. Harrison-Walz wrapped up a bus tour through Southeast Georgia last week, and she is holding an event with President Biden tomorrow in Pennsylvania. Trump and Vance are also holding a handful of battleground state rallies. And Harris and Trump will debate, of course, in just over 1 week. Now, while the Trump team's television and digital advertising may be targeted on immigration and crime and pretty closely targeted on that, we shouldn't ignore that. It appears that Trump, Vance, and the rest of their MAGA crew are still really struggling to land an effective line of attack against Kamala Harris. I mean, think about it this way. For weeks, they've seized on the fact that Harris had yet to do a sit-down interview, saying she was hiding from the media, unwilling to take questions, which also wasn't true at all. But this week, Harrison-Walz sat down with CNN's Dana Bash to do just that.
One, I am so proud to have served as vice president to Joe Biden. And two, I am so proud to be running with Tim Walz for president of the United States and to bring America what I believe the American people deserve, which is a new way forward, and turn the page on the last decade of what I believe has been contrary to where the spirit of our country really lies.
But the last decade, of course, the last 3.5 years has been part of your administration.
I'm talking about an era that started about a decade ago, where there is some suggestion, warped I believe it to be, that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down, instead of where I believe most Americans are, which is to believe that the true measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up. That's what's at stake as much as any other detail that we could discuss in this election.
So that's just one clip. We're going to show you a lot more clips, talk to them with some of my favorite political people. But just to give you a summary, basically Harris and her running mate, Tim Walz, fielded questions on past positions, on foreign policy, on the border, on what they would do on day one, who they want in their cabinet. I mean, they talked about a lot of things in this interview. That should settle this question, right? Everyone should be happy and kind of move on to the other important debates of the day? Of course not. Instead of dropping it, the target has simply been shifted. Now the attack isn't over whether or not Harris did an interview, but over whether or not she did it right. Many Trumpers are apparently angry that this was a joint interview with Harris and Walz. They're outraged. I mean, first of all, it's extremely common, you can see all the photos there, for candidates to do joint interviews. Just ask Barack Obama and Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine, or even Donald Trump himself. It's all even sillier when you compare these attacks with what Trump has been up to this week. I mean, first of all, he was re-indicted on charges related to his effort to subvert the last presidential election. His campaign was rebuked by the U.S. Army after an incident at Arlington National Cemetery earlier this week. He also reposted wildly crude remarks about Kamala Harris on social media and shared dozens of other dark, derogatory, disturbing posts this week. Posts that call for the jailing of people who have tried to hold him accountable, like Special Counsel Jack Smith and the lawmakers who investigated January 6th, that have AI images of his perceived enemies in orange jumpsuits, and that promote QAnon conspiracy theories, just to name a few. I mean, that's kind of the choice facing voters in just 65 days. You can take issue with the timing or logistics of a television interview, buy a ticket who answered a range of substantive policy questions. That can be the hill you want to die on. Or you can take issue with all of that.
The forgotten part.
My fellow citizens,
it is strong.
It's my duty to report
the true problems of our nation.
If vigorously developed, this resource will be of great benefit.
Where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause.
I will be eternally grateful for your support.